So 5.2, imaginary numbers. Now, we have already talked about imaginary numbers a little bit. Does anyone remember what I told you they were? An imaginary number is what? What's the letter for imaginary numbers? I. And it happens when we have a square root of a negative, because you know how we can't take those? Now we can. So, the imaginary number, when dealing with negative square roots, I, the symbol I, equals the square root of -1. So if I is the square root of -1, I squared equals +1. Okay? Example number 1. Square root of -81. Now before we would have said that there was no answer, right? No solution? Okay, now we do have a solution. So what we do in these types of problems is we still look for the perfect square, but we also pull out the square root of -1, which is I. So let's think about it. What is the square root of +89 or 81? 9, right? But we have the negative in there, so our answer for this is going to be 9I. If we were to rewrite this, right, we could rewrite this as the square root of -1 times the square root of 81, right? Yeah? Okay, so what is the square root of -1? I times the square root of 81, 9, which gives me 9I. So what we're really doing is we're breaking it apart. We're taking out that square root of -1 and then finding the square root of the positive numbers. And we replace square root of -1 with the symbol I. And that's it. Example 2. Adam had gotten ahead of us and he started working on it. Okay. Example 2 is 3I, all of that squared. Now, we're multiplying inside the parentheses, so what do I get to do with that exponent? I get to distribute it in, right? So what would I have here? I would have 3 squared times I squared. What is 3 squared? 9. And what is I squared? What did we say the identity for I squared was? 1. So this is actually 9 times 1, which gives me an answer of 9. Let's try example 3. Example 3, we have 8I times 3I. So what is that going to give me? 24I to the what? Second power. I to the squared. So that's going to give me what? 24 times, what's I squared? 1. So 24 times 1, which equals 24. Okay, example 4. Okay, this time, guys, square root of -5 times the square root of -20. What can I do when I'm multiplying square roots? I multiply the insides, right? So what is the square root of -5 times the square root of -20? That's square root -5 times -20. And what is -5 times -20? Positive 100. And oh my gosh, that's a perfect square. What's the square root of positive 100? 10. All right, example 5. Okay, so for square root -36. Can we take the square root of -36 now?
Yes.
Yeah, what is it? 6 what? 6I, good. So we would have 4 times 6I. Okay, can we multiply the 4 times 6?
Yes.
Sure we can. What's 4 times 6? 24I. So that's my answer. Okay, example 6. Square root of 60 over square root of negative 15. What do we do here? We get rid of the square root on the bottom, so how do we do that? We multiply by the square root of negative 15. Good. Okay, so when I have square root of negative 15 times the square root of negative 15, what does that give me in the denominator? We just get negative 15, right? And then on top, we have 60 times negative 15. And I'm not going to multiply it all out, I'm just going to factor it. So we have 60, let's factor that out. That's what? 10 times 6? So 10 is 5 and 2, and 6 is 2 and 3. And then let's do negative 15. Negative 1 and 15, right? And then 15 is 3 and 5. So let's write it all out again. So, well, we want to pull out that negative 1 because the square root of negative 1 is I, right? So we want to pull out that negative 1. And then I put them in order. 2 times 2 times 3 times 3 times 5 times 5. We're going to pull them all out, times negative 15. Okay, so what does that give me? I have, this is a square, this is a square, this is a square. And we know the square root of negative 1, so that's going to be 2 times 3 times 5. And what's the square root of negative 1?
1.
I. All over negative 15. So what does that give me? 30I over negative 15. And this reduces.
15 over negative 2I.
Negative 15 goes into negative 15 once, and negative 15 goes into 30, negative 2 times. So that's going to give me negative 2I. Okay, so for number 7, I have 18 over 2I square root 6. What do I need to do to get rid of that square root 6? Multiply. So what am I going to multiply by? Square root 6. Actually, we want to multiply by 2I square root 6. So we want to multiply by the whole denominator. Because we don't want i's in the denominator either. Okay, so what is that going to give me here? I have 2I square root 6 times 2I square root 6. 2I times 2I is going to give me 4I squared times what? Square root 6 times square root 6 gives me positive 6. Oh, that's supposed to be the denominator. Dang it. 4I squared times 6. Okay, and then I have 18 times 2I root 6, so that's going to give me 18 times 2, 36I root 6. Okay, let's reduce a little bit, or simplify. Let's do the 4 times 6 first. What's that? 24. I squared gives me 1.
God bless you.
36I root 6. And can 24 and 36 reduce? Yeah, what goes into both of them? 6 goes into, no, we can do a bigger one. 12. 12 goes into 24 twice, and 12 goes into 36 3 times. So our answer is going to be 3I root 6 all over 2. Almost done, guys. Example 8. There is a lot of examples because we have a lot of different types of problems. Okay, so example 8. We have square root of negative 17, all of that squared. Okay, what is being squared here? The square root part or the negative 17 part? The negative 17 part. So what's going to be my answer here? I'm going to get the square root of negative 17 squared. Why did I write all of this out? Is the same as, I don't know what I was doing. If I have something inside the square root and it's being squared, what happens? We just have it come out, right? That square root and that square is going to cancel, so what's my answer going to be? Negative 17. Oh, it's plus or minus. Square root of negative 17, negative 17, that's going to be positive. You're right. It's been so long. Okay, which equals 17. There we go. So I made the mistake, guys. So what we need to do in here is inside the square root, we have to square that whole thing. Negative 17 times negative 17. And that's going to give me positive 289. Now, 289 is a perfect square. Is it on that list? Yeah, 289. So our answer is going to be positive 17. So you have to do the work inside the square root before we can take the square of it. Okay, so that was my mistake. Okay.
8 and 9 are the same.
They are not the same. This next one is a little bit different. So this is where what is different about these two. The parentheses is on the outside, or the square is on the outside now, right? Yeah. So when we expand this, what does that give me? Square root of negative 17 times square root of negative 17. Okay. Now, what is the square root of negative 17? That's an imaginary number, right? But when we are multiplying a square times a square, what happens? Square root times square root, what happens? They cancel each other out. So what's on the inside of there?
Negative 17.
Negative 17. So where our parentheses are. Okay, so last example, example 10. Square root of negative 3 plus square root of negative 27. Can I take the square root of negative 3?
No.
No, but I can take out that negative, right?
Yeah.
So what would that give me? I square root 3 plus I square root what? 27. Is 27 a perfect square? No. But isn't there a perfect square in there? Yeah, what is it? Well, not 3, it's 9, right? So that would give me I square root 3 plus 3I square root 3. Okay, now I see some common terms here. Does anybody else see common terms?
The 3.
The square root 3 and the i's. So what can we do here? We can combine them. So what would that give me? 4i square root 3. These are it's kind of like terms, guys. So you know